Revelations and speculations, secrets unveiled and suspicions arise. Serenity wakes up from a dream in which she couldn't hear Zachary's words, causing her anxiety. She is unsure if Zachary has returned home, as Mrs. Lane informs her that she stayed overnight at her sister Liberty's place. Suffering from a hangover, Serenity asks Mrs. Lane to make her a bowl of hangover soup or give her a painkiller to alleviate her headache. She leaves the kitchen and goes into the guest room, intending to secretly take a painkiller from the medicine box. However, Serenity is startled when her sister Liberty's voice resounds in the room, asking if she has a headache. Serenity almost drops the bottle of painkillers. She explains that her headache is due to lack of sleep and reassures Liberty that she'll be fine after taking a painkiller. Since Liberty sees her, Serenity abandons the idea of taking it secretly. Liberty expresses her frustration and anger towards Serenity's drinking habits, emphasizing that she is not a good drinker and easily gets drunk after just a few glasses. She scolds Serenity for not heeding her advice and warns that she will inform Zachary to take her along on his future business trips to prevent her from drinking irresponsibly in his absence. Serenity tries to defend herself, claiming that she only had a few drinks and it was not a big deal. Liberty walks back to the kitchen, continuing to scold her sister and instructing her to ask Mrs. Lane to make hangover soup for her. Serenity expresses her love and gratitude towards Liberty, calling her the best sister in the world, but Liberty glares at her in response. While Serenity is eating, Liberty notices that there are clothes hanging outside on the balcony. She brings in Zachary's clothes and questions why they are still damp after being hung for several days, despite no rain and occasional sunny hours. Liberty compares it to their own situation, where their clothes dry easily in the sunlight. Serenity instinctively explains that Zachary rarely dries his clothes on the main balcony and instead uses a smaller one in his room. However, when Liberty inspects the clothes closely, she realizes that they belong to Zachary. She points out a pair of long trousers and states that they are clearly men's pants. Serenity is at a loss for words as she carries her bowl and walks out to see the clothes. She freezes upon confirming that they are indeed Zachary's pants, along with his shirt and briefs. This surprises her because she distinctly remembers helping Zachary pack his luggage before his business trip and ensuring that no clothes were left outside. The presence of Zachary's clothes on the balcony baffles Serenity and raises questions about why they were there. Serenity wonders if Zachary had really come back the previous night. To divert the conversation, Serenity directs Liberty's attention to the pretty flowers in her balcony garden and asks her to enjoy it while she finishes eating. Once Serenity returns to the dining room, she quickly sends a message to her friend Jasmine, asking about the events of the previous night. She mentions her dream about Zachary coming home and the damp clothes on the balcony. Serenity wants to confirm if her dream was a reality and requests Jasmine to text instead of calling to avoid suspicion from Liberty. Liberty, concerned about her sister's relationship, had feared that Serenity would be unhappy in her marriage. Jasmine responds to Serenity's messages, confirming that she drank a lot and broke her record. She informs Serenity that Zachary did come back and helped her out of the bar. Jasmine assures her that her experience wasn't a dream and that Zachary had indeed returned, showing his care and concern for her. Serenity is left speechless by the revelation and asks Jasmine if Zachary had really come home. She mentions that he said many things to her, nagging like an old man. Jasmine, instead of typing, sends a voice message, asking if Mr. York is around and sharing the information she gathered from Josh. She reveals that Zachary had rushed back to the city to continue his business trip but made a detour upon learning that Serenity had gone to the bar. Jasmine emphasizes that it's clear that Zachary still cares about Serenity. Serenity lowers the volume and listens to the voice message from Jasmine. She realizes that Zachary did come back but had left before she woke up. Despite his busy schedule, he prioritized returning because he was worried about her going to the bar. Serenity is unsure how Zachary knew about her bar visit. While she had encountered Josh at the bar, Zachary couldn't have arrived right after she left since he was far away. She assumes he must have received the news in advance and returned early. Curious about how she got home, Serenity asked Jasmine if she followed when Zachary brought her home. Jasmine informs her that Zachary personally picked her up and arranged for a substitute driver named Jim from the neighborhood to drive them. Serenity recalls that her clothes were different from what she wore the previous day, indicating that someone had changed her clothes after she got home. Mrs. Lane and Grandma May were not present, and Jasmine did not accompany her, so it must have been Zachary who helped her change. Serenity wonders if anything happened while she was unconscious and if Zachary did something when he undressed her. Serenity received a call from Elisa and quickly answered. Elisa asked about Serenity's location and mentioned that she was in front of Serenity's store, which was closed that day. Serenity agreed to send her the location and informed her that she and her sister were ready to leave. Elisa opened the navigation app on her phone after receiving the location and started driving towards Springfield. While merging into traffic on the expressway, Elisa almost collided with a Maybach car. Both drivers stopped their cars, rolled down their windows, and started discussing the incident. The driver of the Maybach hesitated to back up as Elisa had gestured, instead looking towards the person sitting in the back seat. The passenger, Remy, advised the driver to back up and let Elisa go, describing her as a rude and unreasonable woman. Remy, who managed the FC & Co. subsidiary, recognized the important figures from the Stone Group, including Clive Stone, Alice, Clive's wife, and Audrey, a significant figure in the company. He was aware of Elisa's explosive temper and preferred to avoid unnecessary confrontation. The Maybach driver and the security entourage reversed their cars to give way to Elisa, and she thanked Remy's driver before driving away. However, at a red light about 200 meters away, Elisa noticed Remy's car pulling up beside hers. She glanced over but could only see the driver since the curtains on the backseat window were closed, preventing her from seeing the passenger. Elisa recalled the earlier incident where the driver of the Maybach refused to yield when she was merging into his lane, while the passenger seemed willing to make way for her. When the traffic light turned green, Remy's car moved ahead of Elisa's. Elisa noticed Remy's car's license plate and wondered whose car it was, especially with the accompanying security detail. She couldn't think of anyone in Wolfsburg besides Zachary who traveled with such an entourage. Her eldest brother didn't prefer bodyguards and would only occasionally have two, unlike Zachary who had 2 teams of 8 bodyguards and made grand entrances wherever he went. Unaware of Elisa's encounter with Remy on the road, Serenity sent her address to Elisa and then texted Jasmine to inform her that she was going to her aunt's house. She then decided to send a message to Zachary, even though she knew he was likely still on the plane and might not reply. Serenity felt her heart sink when she received no response from him and muttered to herself, pretending not to care. Putting her phone in her coat pocket, Serenity got up and carried the dishes into the kitchen to clean them. Meanwhile, Serenity asked Liberty if she had applied the cream to the wound on her face. Liberty had already applied it but was concerned about potential scarring. Liberty reassured her that the wound wasn't deep enough to leave a scar. While Liberty held Sunny and observed Serenity washing the dishes from the kitchen doorway, she asked her sister if she thought she was too soft. Serenity pointed out that Liberty had forgiven their ex-mother-in-law once for Sunny's sake, and now that their family knew they had an aunt, they wouldn't dare harm her again. Serenity added that their ex-mother-in-law probably regretted her actions, but Liberty no longer cared about them. During their conversation, Liberty received a phone call from a somewhat familiar number. She couldn't recall exactly whose number it was, but she had answered a call from it before. It turned out to be Jessica, who immediately spoke in a childish voice. Liberty didn't appreciate the tone and asked Jessica to speak normally. Jessica then asked if she could add Liberty on social media. Liberty found Jessica's request strange and questioned why they would become friends since they had nothing to talk about. Jessica mentioned that she wanted to know if Liberty could live a good life after divorcing Hank and reminded her of the significant amount of money she received from the divorce settlement. Liberty remained calm and warned Jessica not to be too arrogant, suggesting that she could witness how Liberty and her son would live a prosperous life. Liberty also advised Jessica not to underestimate the consequences of her arrogance. Jessica responded with a giggling remark, admitting her inherent arrogance and confessing her jealousy toward Liberty. She revealed that she had known about Liberty since joining Waltham Electronics and hearing praises about her capabilities and beauty, as well as her perfect match with Hank. Jessica admitted to feeling envious and wanting to take everything that belonged to Liberty. "Just so you know, Hank and I will be getting married on Valentine's Day," Jessica informed Liberty. Remaining remarkably calm, Liberty replied, "Congratulations, Ms. Yates," internally noting that Jessica was willingly entering the chaotic world of the Brown family. Jessica continued, taunting Liberty about waking up to a homemade breakfast by Hank and insinuating that Liberty had never experienced his cooking during their 3-year marriage. Fed up with Jessica's provocation, Liberty abruptly ended the call. Curious about the phone conversation, Serenity asked Liberty if it was Jessica on the phone. Liberty described Jessica as insane, despite her divorce from Hank and allowing him to be with Jessica. she had audaciously called to request adding Liberty as a friend on social media. She is likely to flaunt her relationship with Hank and provoke Liberty. Liberty brushed it off, stating that Hank was now just an ex-husband and expressing amusement at the idea of him cooking breakfast for Jessica, knowing that he never cooked and likely ordered takeout. Jessica had also mentioned their plan to register their marriage on Valentine's Day, which Liberty eagerly anticipated. Liberty criticized Jessica for her shamelessness, but also acknowledged that she was grateful to her for persuading Hank to easily give up custody of Sonny. Hugging Sonny tightly, Liberty affirmed that her son was her priority in life. She could let go of Hank, but not her child. Feeling relieved that it was all over, Liberty agreed to go to the supermarket with Serenity before heading to their aunt's house, as they couldn't go empty-handed. After shopping, they received a message from Elisa informing them that she was already at the entrance of Banquet. Serenity and Liberty met up with Elisa and followed her to the Stone residence instead of re-entering the neighborhood. During the drive, Liberty expressed to Serenity that if Aunt Audrey wanted to help them, they should firmly refuse. They believed they could support themselves and shouldn't rely on Aunt Audrey's wealth. 40 minutes later, they arrived at the Stone family villa, where Audrey and her family were waiting at the entrance. Audrey's face lit up with a smile upon seeing the two cars approaching. Elisa greeted the Hunt sisters, jokingly stating that her mother now had her nieces and didn't want her daughter anymore. Audrey approached Serenity's car and reached out to hug Sonny, but he resisted being carried and she settled for patting his head. Serenity called out to Aunt Audrey, who responded with a smile. Daryl, accompanied by his two sons and daughter-in-law, also greeted the sisters. Daryl mentioned that Audrey had been eagerly waiting since morning and had wanted to personally pick them up. Feeling slightly embarrassed, Serenity explained that their delay was due to her getting drunk the previous night. Liberty drove them to the Stone residence, and she instructed Sonny to greet Audrey and her family. Although Sonny initially didn't want Audrey to hold him, he eventually let Alice hold him when she reached out. Audrey was surprised by Sonny's pickiness with people, but Serenity assured her that he would want to be held by her the next time they meet. Clive, Audrey's eldest son, was introduced to the sisters, and they greeted him with smiles. Anthony, Audrey's younger son, was also introduced, and the sisters greeted him as well. Sonny returned to Serenity's embrace, and they prepared to enter the villa. Clive noticed the diamond ring on Serenity's left ring finger and found it familiar, reminiscent of a similar ring he had seen before. He discreetly observed the ring for a while. Daryl called everyone inside, and Elisa parked her car as instructed. Liberty followed suit, bringing Serenity's car with her. Laughter and chatter filled the air as they entered the villa. The maids took the gifts brought by the Hunt sisters, but Audrey commented that there was no need to buy so many things since they were family and not strangers. Serenity reassured her that the gifts were not much. Once inside the main building, everyone took their seats on the sofa. Clive whispered to Alice, his wife, that he had something to discuss with her and suggested they go upstairs. Alice hesitated, considering that their cousins had just arrived, but Clive mentioned that their parents and Elisa were with them. Clive remembered whose hand wore the familiar diamond ring and wanted Alice to find an opportunity to ask Serenity about it. Alice, intrigued by Clive's serious expression, followed him upstairs. Clive closed and locked the door, creating a private space for their conversation. Curious, Alice asked Clive what was wrong. Clive brought up the topic of Serenity's wedding ring to Alice. Amused, Alice asked if he thought he was the only one who noticed it and questioned what was wrong with Serenity's ring. Clive hesitated, searching for the right words to express himself. Alice reminded him that they were husband and wife, encouraging him to share whatever was on his mind. Clive mentioned Zachary and his wedding ring, recalling how Zachary had shown off his ring on social media and even invited him to a meal at Wildspoon Hotel. Alice reassured him that it was just his imagination and overthinking, emphasizing that they were both married and there was no need to worry. Clive, the powerful CEO of Stone Group, adored his wife despite his occasional suspicions. Clive explained that he saw Zachary change his wedding ring into a diamond one during their meal together. Zachary had mentioned that his wife didn't like gold rings, so he switched to diamond rings. Clive had vividly remembered the design of Zachary's ring, and when he saw Serenity's ring, he felt a sense of familiarity. It matched Zachary's ring. Alice was shocked by Clive's revelation and touched his forehead to check for a fever. She couldn't believe that Zachary's ring would match Serenity's. If their rings were a pair, it suggested that Serenity could be Zachary's mysterious wife. Alice found it hard to comprehend since Zachary, as the heir of the York family, seemed unlikely to cross paths with Serenity in their lives. Clive pointed out that Elisa had mentioned that Serenity's husband had the last name York, which was quite uncommon in Wildspoon. He noted that most people with the last name York in the city were either from Zachary's family or had some connection to them. Clive also mentioned that Serenity's husband worked at York Corporation, adding that it seemed too coincidental. Alice wondered if there were other individuals with the surname York working at the corporation who weren't directly related to Zachary or his brothers. Clive hesitated for a moment before responding that while there were members of the extended family working at York Corporation, some more distantly related than others. It was still a possibility that Serenity's husband and Zachary shared a common ancestor with the York family and had the same last name without being directly related. Clive had been considering the possibility that Serenity's husband could be Zachary due to their shared last name, but he didn't mention it when his sister brought up the topic. The York family had deep roots in the countryside, and it was believed that everyone in their ancestral town shared the last name York. Clive wasn't sure if Zachary's ancestors brought along townspeople when they moved to the city and made their fortune. Clive knew that there were many employees with the surname York at York Corporation and its branches. However, most of them had no connection to Zachary and simply shared the same last name. He wanted Alice to discreetly ask Serenity about her husband's name without letting their mother or Elisa find out. Clive was aware that Elisa still had lingering feelings for Zachary, and their mother loved Elisa more than Serenity. Clive shared with Alice that Serenity always referred to her husband as Mr. York in front of Elisa, and Elisa addressed Zachary in the same way. It seemed that neither of them knew they were talking about the same person. Alice mentioned that Serenity's best friend was Mrs. Lowe's niece, and the Lowe family's heir frequently visited Serenity's shop. She found it odd that Serenity wouldn't mention her husband's name to Mr. Lowe and others. Clive explained that the York family had a unique way of education and kept their children's identities protected until they entered society. Only those close to the York family knew Zachary's name. He was highly private and secretive, and if Elisa wasn't part of the Stone family, she wouldn't have been able to find out Zachary's name or pursue him. Clive suggested that Mr. Lowe might not know that Serenity's husband was Zachary York, or he assumed it was someone with the same name. Alice expressed her disbelief, stating that she didn't think Zachary would be Serenity's husband. Clive acknowledged that he might be overthinking and hoped that he was wrong. However, if Serenity's husband did turn out to be Zachary, Clive believed they should keep it a secret, not to protect Zachary, but for Elisa's sake. Clive and Alice discussed the situation, acknowledging the potential consequences if Elisa found out that Serenity's husband was Zachary. Clive expressed his concern for Elisa's well-being and wanted to wait until she had fully let go of her feelings for Zachary before revealing the truth. Alice pointed out that as Serenity's husband, Zachary would eventually have to meet their family, especially Audrey. Clive decided to talk to Zachary and inquire about his marriage being hidden. Alice suggested calling Zachary immediately to find out his whereabouts, as it could provide some insight into the situation. They also wondered how Serenity got married so suddenly and agreed that Serenity probably didn't know Zachary's true identity. Alice agreed to secretly ask Serenity about her husband, ensuring that neither Audrey nor Elisa found out. Clive emphasized the importance of keeping the information hidden, even if they confirmed that Zachary was Serenity's husband, to avoid any conflicts between Elisa and Serenity. Alice understood the gravity of the situation and vowed to keep the secret. The couple went downstairs as if nothing was amiss. Audrey discussed hosting a banquet to introduce the Hunt sisters as her nieces and announced that anyone who tried to bully them would be going against the Stone family. She mentioned the incidents of Liberty being bullied and asked Clive to seek justice for her without resorting to physical harm or illegal actions. Audrey planned for Elisa and herself to take Serenity and Liberty to pick out evening dresses for the banquet. Upon seeing Clive and Alice, Audrey assigned them the responsibility of sending out guest invitations for the party and invited them to spend a few days with her. Alice, caught up in the conversation, blurted out the suggestion of inviting the York family to the banquet. However, she realized her mistake and apologized, glancing at Serenity to see her reaction. Alice wondered if Serenity's in-laws were truly the York family. Audrey, not bothered by Alice's comment, dismissed the idea, stating that the York family wouldn't send anyone even if they're invited. She didn't want to make a fool of herself. Audrey believed that the York family didn't hold a favorable opinion of her daughter. Despite Elisa's longtime infatuation with Zachary, the York family never showed any interest in forming a connection with the Stone family. Audrey didn't want the attitude of the York family to overshadow the joy of finding her nieces. Elisa, although hurt, put on a smile and reassured Alice, acknowledging that her mother's vague words included the York family in the list of invitees. Audrey patted Elisa's hand and expressed her decision not to invite the York family. She acknowledged the long-standing strained relationship between the two families and believed that reconciliation might have to wait for the next generation. A maid then informed Audrey that lunch was ready, and she suggested everyone eat before relaxing and going shopping. Audrey insisted on buying clothes for Serenity, Liberty, and Sunny, wanting to dress them up for the occasion. Elisa jokingly teased Serenity about receiving messages from her sudden husband while he was on a business trip, referring to the WhatsApp notification on her phone. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, The Voice Novel, and follow Voice Novel on Facebook, so you will get notified whenever a new video is uploaded. Thank you.